This girl looked her future stepmom dead in the eye and called her a gold digger with a uterus. Yeah, you heard that right. So the woman fired back with something she can never take back, and just like that, the family dinner turned into a war zone. Was she out of line, or was it finally time someone put this teenager in her place? That's just the first story, because today we've got 16 of the wildest, rawest, and most unhinged AITAH posts Reddit has to offer. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to AITAH Chronicles, where we break down the wildest Reddit AITAH stories every single day. If you're into jaw-dropping drama, impossible moral dilemmas, and watching people blow up their lives in real time, you're in the right place. Our goal? 10,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching helps us get closer. So if you like the content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive straight into the chaos. Because trust me, you won't believe how deep today's drama goes. Title: Am I the asshole for telling my fiance's daughter I'm not her mom after she called me a gold digger with a uterus? All right, let's get into this one. So the writer, 32F, has been with her fiancé, 38M, for nearly 4 years. And over those years, she's done more than just date a man with a kid. She's become a steady, supportive presence in this girl's life. His daughter is 15. Her biological mom? Still around, but not exactly active. Think more along the lines of wine nights and astrology memes than school forms and dentist appointments. Meanwhile, the writer has been the one showing up. She's handled school meetings. She's been there during panic attacks. She's cooked real meals instead of just tapping reorder on Postmates. She even planned this girl's birthday party when her own mother forgot the date. And let's be real, that doesn't come from obligation. That comes from care. But here's where things take a turn. Last weekend, there's a fancy dinner. Big moment. Writer is finally meeting her fiance's extended family. The kind of event where you're trying to smile through the nerves, make a good impression, not spill anything on your dress. They're sitting around the table, everyone chatting, glasses clinking, everything going fine. And then, right in the middle of dinner, the daughter turns to the writer, smiling sweetly, and says, "So how does it feel being a gold digger with a uterus? That's what mom says you are." The room falls silent. One of the relatives actually chokes on their wine. Everyone stares. And the writer? She doesn't scream. She doesn't cause a scene. She just stares for a beat, probably thinking, "Did that really just happen?" And then she replies, "Oh, honey, I'm not your mom. I just happen to be the woman keeping your life together while she's out getting her chakras aligned." Oof. Let's pause here. Because that line, that wasn't just a comeback. That was 4 years of quiet sacrifice boiling up and spilling out, not in anger, but in truth. That was someone who's held her tongue again and again, finally choosing to speak up. The daughter bursts into tears and storms out. The fiancé is mortified. Later, he tells the writer that she stooped to her level and that she should apologize, that she's just a kid repeating what she hears. And yeah, maybe that's true. But being 15 doesn't mean you get to fire off insults without consequences, especially not insults like that at a family dinner in front of people who barely know you. The writer pushes back. She says she spent years swallowing disrespect and keeping the peace. And maybe the real problem isn't her reaction, but the fact that this teenager thinks she can say something that brutal and just walk away from it like it's a joke. Now, the family is split. Some think she went too far. Others say she finally said what everyone else was thinking, but didn't have the guts to say. So, am I the asshole for finally telling this girl I'm not her mom when she decided to humiliate me in front of the whole damn family? Let's break this down. The writer never tried to replace this girl's mom. She just stepped in where someone else stepped out. And it sounds like she did it with kindness, patience, and a lot of quiet work that nobody acknowledged. That kind of presence, that's not about titles, it's about actions. But the daughter crossed a serious line. And she didn't just lash out in private. She weaponized her mother's opinion, repackaged it as a joke, and launched it in front of an entire room of strangers, people the writer was just meeting. That wasn't a slip-up. That was a calculated shot meant to hurt and humiliate. And the writer responded. Not cruelly, not screaming, but with a reality check. She set a boundary that probably should have been drawn a long time ago. Is she the asshole? Absolutely not. She's a human being who finally stood up for herself in a situation where she's been putting others first for far too long. Sometimes the truth stings, but that doesn't make it wrong. Title: Am I the asshole for expecting my husband to be home every night we have his kids, my stepkids? All right, let's talk about a household where the chaos is built in and a woman who's trying her best not to be consumed by it. The writer is a woman in her 30s, no biological kids of her own, but for the last few years, she's been a steady presence in the lives of two boys, 12 and 14, her husband's sons from his previous marriage. Now, she calls them sweet, but they're teenage boys, and that sweetness, yeah, it often comes packaged with yelling, wrestling, stubbornness, and a general inability to hear anything that sounds like no. They've all been living together for about 2.5 years, and things haven't always been easy. But the writers stepped up, not as a mom, not trying to replace anyone, but as a figure of care, structure, and sanity in a house that often doesn't have much of any. Now, here's where the tension starts to brew. Last summer, the family made a big move about 60 miles away, and it wasn't just a spontaneous relocation. No, this was a sacrifice. The boy's mom got remarried and moved, and instead of putting the kids through a punishing commute, the writer and her husband agreed to move closer. Noble? Sure. But let's not ignore the cost. The husband still works near their old place. That's a long commute. And to make it manageable, he plays bar poker with friends on Monday and Tuesday nights and stays with those friends overnight. So, on nights when the kids aren't around, he's also not around. Not exactly ideal for the writer, but she tolerates it. She even supports it, giving him space and freedom. Freedom he apparently didn't have in his first marriage. She's not trying to be controlling. She wants him to enjoy his life. But there was always an understanding. When the kids are home, he is too. That's just the baseline. But now, it's summer again. And summer means a new custody schedule. 1 week on, 1 week off. A heavier lift, more time with the kids, more responsibility, and guess what the husband says? I'm still gonna play poker on Tuesdays and stay at my friends, like it's no big deal, like it's just another hobby night. Let's stop here for a second, because this isn't just about poker. This is about what's being asked of the writer. She's already the default parent. Laundry, meals, pickups, drop-offs, schedules, that's her. She's not just supporting this family emotionally, she's running the day-to-day like a one-woman logistics team. And now he expects her to also manage the chaos of two rowdy teenagers by herself, boys who bicker, fight, maybe even throw punches while he's out playing cards. It's not just unrealistic, it's unfair. She's expressed this clearly, repeatedly. She's told him how anxious she feels being alone with them, that she doesn't feel right disciplining them, that it's not her place, that she's not comfortable being the only adult when things could escalate at any moment. And his response? It's just one night a week. That one sentence speaks volumes. It's not just dismissive, it's blind to the reality of what's being asked. It's not one night of babysitting, it's a whole mental load she's being told to carry alone. Again, now here's the part that hits deeper. She's not just thinking about herself, she's thinking about the boys too, because when your dad chooses poker over being home during his custodial week, that sends a message. A quiet one maybe, but kids hear it loud and clear. Dad's got better things to do. And sure, maybe he doesn't mean it that way. Maybe to him it's harmless, just a night with friends. But to a kid, consistency is everything. Showing up, that's the job. Meanwhile, the writer's bending over backward. She's already sacrificing their rare alone time as a couple so he can see his sons and still squeeze in some hobby time. She's rearranging her life, carrying the invisible labor, and now being made to feel wrong for asking him to come home. Let's be honest, this isn't just about poker. This is about priorities. And when someone shows you where they put theirs, you believe them. So, is the writer the asshole for expecting her husband to be home on the nights they have the boys? Absolutely not. She's not asking for a grand sacrifice. She's not telling him to quit his hobby or lock himself in the house. She's asking for presence, for a partner who's willing to parent when it actually counts, for a man who sees her not as a convenient stepmom backup, but as someone who deserves support and respect too. If anything, she's being way too reasonable. The real question here isn't whether the writer is the asshole, it's why she's the only one acting like a parent in this whole situation. Title: Am I the asshole for refusing to tell my parents where my sister is buried? There are certain promises we make in life that define who we are and who we refuse to become. The writer is a 28-year-old man, but this isn't really about him. It's about Lily, his older sister, his best friend in a house that never felt like home. Growing up, they were close, inseparable, really. Not because they had the perfect family life, but because when everything else felt cold and rigid, they had each other. Their parents? Let's just say they were more concerned with how the family looked to others than how their children actually felt. Image came first. Control was everything. And love, if it existed at all, it was buried somewhere beneath judgment and cruelty. Lily, though, she didn't take it lying down. She pushed back, rebelled. She refused to let her life be dictated by people who saw her more as a reflection of themselves than as a person with her own soul. And at 18, Lily made the choice that changed everything. She packed a single backpack, walked out the door, and never looked back. To the outside world, the parents told a different story, that she was unstable, dangerous, a drug addict, mentally ill, all lies, all meant to preserve their image, not tell the truth. But the writer, he knew better, because he never let go of her. They kept in touch, quietly, carefully for years. She changed her name, moved to another city, started a new life, a peaceful one. No chaos, no drama, no judgment, just the calm she'd always deserved. She never asked for a dime, she didn't need help, she just needed distance. And then she got sick. It was sudden, unforgiving, and when the end came, it was fast. But before she passed, she made the writer promise her one thing, a final wish carved in pain and truth. Don't let them near me. Not my grave, not my memory, nothing. No funeral, no obituary, just a quiet, unmarked place, far from the people who never saw her for who she really was. And the writer, he kept his promise. He paid for everything himself, arranged the burial alone, told no one, not even his parents, not for weeks, because that was the only way to honor her. And when he finally told them, they erupted. Suddenly, they were the victims. They screamed, accused, called him heartless, monstrous, that he robbed them of their right to grieve, as if grief was something you could claim like property. They begged to know where she was buried, sometimes with tears, sometimes with threats, but always with the same demand. Tell us where she is. And the writer refused, again and again and again, because a promise made in love doesn't get broken out of guilt. But it didn't stop there. Oh no. They took to social media, told anyone who would listen that he was unstable, that he was hiding a body. They threatened lawsuits, accused him of playing God. And the extended family? Split down the middle. Some understand, others call him cruel, accuse him of wielding power over life and death. But here's the thing. They buried her long before he did. When they called her dangerous for seeking freedom, when they lied about who she was, when they threw away their daughter the second she stopped playing the part they wanted her to play, that's when the funeral started. And the writer, he's just the one who laid her to rest. There's a small, powerful detail buried in an edit at the bottom of his post. A few years ago, their parents stole his phone, sifted through private photos, saw glimpses of Lily's new life, her child, her joy. He told her what happened. She knew. And still, she let him tell them she'd died. Not because she forgave them, but because she wanted them to feel the pain of loss, the kind they deserved, the kind she lived through alone when she walked out of their house at 18. So now the writer is here, asking strangers a question that cuts deep. Am I the asshole for keeping my sister's final resting place a secret from our parents? Let's be clear. He didn't bury the truth. He protected it. He didn't deny them closure. They never earned it. He isn't playing God. He's honoring the only person in his life who ever loved him without condition. This isn't just a boundary. It's a shield. A promise. A final act of loyalty to a sister who asked for just one thing. Don't let them find me. Not even in death. Title: Am I the asshole for telling my new work colleague she has no right to control our office habits? Every office has its quirks. The unspoken rules, the little routines, the random inside jokes. It's not just a place to work, it becomes a rhythm, and over time you settle into it like a well-worn hoodie. You know who eats at their desk, who microwaves fish, who wears too much perfume. You know how things work. But every now and then, someone new walks in, and they don't just want a desk, they want control. The writer is a 35-year-old man who's been working in the same office for the past 3 years. Nothing fancy, just a regular job with regular people, until recently when they hired a new colleague. She's 25, new to the team, and let's just say she's made an impression. She sits diagonally from the writer, close enough to see him snacking at his desk. And that's where it all started. Now, the writer admits it himself. His eating habits? Not exactly healthy, but they're his. Ice cream, cakes, snacks. The guy's desk is practically a mini convenience store. He's not bothering anyone, until she starts commenting, jokingly at first, asking how he stays skinny while eating like a pig. Not exactly charming, but he brushed it off. Still, in an effort to be nice, he even offered her some snacks. She refused, said she was trying to lose weight. Fair enough, so he stopped snacking at his desk. He adjusts, plays along, but by the end of her very first week, she goes to HR, yes, HR, and complains that people eating at their desks is unhygienic. Crumbs, bugs, distractions. She even complains that his food habits personally disturb her while she's trying to stay on track with her diet. So what happens? HR sends a mass email, and just like that, eating at your desk? Banned for everyone. The whole office pays the price for one person's discomfort. Strike one. But she's not done. On her second day, she tells HR that another coworker, let's call her Jane, wears perfume that's too strong and makes her nauseous. Now, everyone smelled Jane's perfume. Maybe it's a little intense, but no one's ever had an issue with it. Until now. Jane ends up having to change it. Just like that. Strike two. Next. The team has a harmless tradition. 6 of them pool together $10 weekly to buy a lottery ticket. One team member, a Muslim man, doesn't participate because of his faith. No problem, no drama. But this new hire, she calls it unprofessional, says gambling at work is dangerous. She actually goes to HR again with a scenario where the team wins millions and everyone quits, leaving the company in chaos. Yes, that was her real argument. Thankfully, HR ignores it, but still, strike three, and the hits keep coming. The same Muslim colleague uses the stationary room twice a day to pray. No prayer room in the building, so he found a quiet space and made it work. He's never asked for anything, never disrupted anyone, just peace. But she complains about that too, says he shouldn't keep personal belongings in shared spaces, even says his prayer mat is unpleasant to look at. At this point, it's not just nitpicking. It's not about hygiene or policy. It's control. It's dominance. She's not adjusting to the workplace, she's trying to remake it in her image. Then comes today. The office layout is an L shape, the writer's desk is by a window, and in that corner, everyone agrees on one thing: close the blinds. The sunlight causes glare, overheats the screens, and throws off productivity. Simple. But she wants the window open, says the office is too dark. Bad vibes, she calls it, and she insists that sunlight will boost morale and make people work better. So the writer finally snaps. He stands up and says what everyone else has been thinking but too polite to say. Look, you've been here less than a month, and you keep telling us what to do. We've changed so many things to accommodate you, but you keep pushing. Maybe you'd be happier sitting where HR is. It's always bright over there, and you already spend more time with them than with us. Reasonable? Maybe a little harsh, but not cruel. Her reaction? You hate women. You're bullying me. I'm going to HR. That's a serious escalation and, frankly, a weaponization of identity that dilutes real issues people face. But it doesn't end there. In an update, the writer shares something that takes the story from frustrating to downright bizarre. Downstairs, the company employs a man with Down syndrome named Bob to help with restocking. He's well-known, well-liked, and has a routine. One day, he sees an older kitchen lady wearing a Pikachu apron. Excited, he yells Pikachu and runs up to touch the apron, accidentally brushing her chest. The kitchen lady? She lady? She knows Bob. There's no malice, just a moment. But the new girl? She watches this happen and decides it's sexual harassment. She says she's going to report Bob to HR. At this point, we're beyond reasonable complaints. This is a pattern, a power play, a person walking into a space where relationships and understanding have already formed and deciding that her comfort is more important than the fabric of the team. So now the writer is asking, am I the asshole for pushing back, for saying something, for not letting this continue? Let's break this down. Did he insult her? No. Did he threaten her? No. Still no. Did he call out behavior that was genuinely disruptive to the team? Absolutely. This isn't about snacks or perfume or sunlight. It's about boundaries and what happens when one person steamrolls over everyone else in the name of comfort. And you know what? Standing up doesn't make you a bully. Drawing a line doesn't make you sexist. It makes you human. Title: Am I the asshole for moving out and skipping a family reunion because my parents kept inviting my sister's best friend? All right, this one's personal. This isn't just some family drama with clashing opinions and petty misunderstandings. This is about protection, neglect, and a line that should have never been crossed. The writer is 17 years old. Still a kid by age, sure, but the things he's had to handle, they've forced him to grow up a lot faster than most. He has a younger sister, Lana, 15, and Lana's inseparable best friend, Meg. Now, Meg has been around forever, practically a fixture in their house, like wallpaper that talks too much. The writer knew Meg had a crush on him years ago. It wasn't a secret, but he figured, hey, harmless teenage phase, and besides, he came out when he was 13. He's gay. Not interested. End of story, right? Except it wasn't. Not by a long shot, because somewhere along the line, Meg's harmless crush turned into something else, something obsessive. She started flirting constantly, pushing boundaries in ways that stopped being cute and started becoming seriously uncomfortable. So the writer did what you're supposed to do. He spoke up. He told his sister, told his parents, even talked to Meg directly. And what did his parents say? She's just a kid. It's a harmless crush. They dismissed it, brushed it off like a leaf on the porch, even when the writer explained that it wasn't harmless anymore, even when it got weird, scary. Let's talk specifics. Meg was sneaking into his room, going through his things. She slept in his bed when he wasn't home. One night, she came to his door in the middle of the night, saying she was scared and wanted to get in his bed. This wasn't a one-off. This was a pattern, a clear violation of his space, of his body, of his boundaries. She stripped in the pool, tried to touch him, cuddled up on the couch during family movie nights, suggested sitting on his lap at dinner, sat next to him everywhere. And when he spoke up, again, his family acted like he was the problem. No one protected him. No one told Meg to stop. He had to lock his door just to feel safe in his own house. That's not a harmless crush. That's a teenage girl who has no concept of boundaries and a family who enabled her every step of the way. And let's be clear, it got physical. At school, Meg tried to follow him into the boys' bathroom. Finally, teachers intervened. But when the writer's parents found out, they were upset at him for getting her in trouble for reporting the harassment. They said he was being too harsh on poor Meg. That's when he reached his breaking point. The writer called his grandparents, told them everything, and they, thankfully, listened. They told him he could move in, so he did, quietly, without asking for permission, because he knew his parents would try to stop him. And when they did, when they came at him all furious and shocked, he told them, in not-so-polite words, to back off. Can you blame him? Now here's where things escalate. Meg and Lana tried showing up at the grandparents' house, tried to force their way back into his space, but the grandparents, they drew a hard line. Lana could visit if she wanted, but Meg, not welcome. And then came the family reunion. It was at the lake house, the place where everyone gathers, where memories are made. And guess who was invited to keep Lana company? Meg. That was it. The final straw. The writer and his grandparents didn't go. The grandparents didn't hesitate. They stood in his corner. They said, if our grandson's not going, we're not going either. That's what family is supposed to do. They didn't lecture, they didn't doubt, they stood with him. But of course, the backlash came rolling in. The parents were livid, called him dramatic, said he was acting like a scared kid. told him to get over it. That Meg's just a 15-year-old girl with a crush. But here's the thing, she wasn't just a 15-year-old girl with a crush. She was someone who crossed boundaries repeatedly, made the writer feel unsafe in his own home, and wasn't stopped because no one in power cared to stop her. He even tried to bring a fake boyfriend to deflect her move at one point. And she still tried to flirt, still tried to touch him. This wasn't innocent. This was obsession. And what really stings, the people who were supposed to protect him, his parents, chose to protect Meg instead. The grandparents saw that, and they didn't hold back. They told his parents flat out, "You failed him. You don't deserve the title if you won't do the job." And honestly, they're right. So now the writer is sitting here wondering if he's the asshole for choosing himself, for getting away, for saying enough. Let's answer that. Was the writer the asshole for moving out and skipping the reunion? Not even close. He did what he had to do to protect himself in a situation where no one else would. And the people trying to guilt him for it, they're the ones who should be looking in the mirror. The only people who did right by him were his grandparents, and thank God they did. Because everyone else, they failed him. Over and over again. Title, Am I the asshole for telling my ex's girlfriend she isn't special and that he'll do it to her too? Alright, this one walks the line between brutal honesty and emotional damage. So, let's dive in. The writer is a 30-year-old woman recently separated from her 32-year-old husband. The marriage? 2 years. The dating before that? A little over a year. So, in total, just under 3 years of partnership on paper. Emotionally, that timeline felt a lot longer. Because everything started out fine, typical honeymoon phase. The only noticeable difference was that her now ex had a lower sex drive than her, not unheard of, and 2 to 3 times a week, manageable. She adjusted, compromised, because when you love someone, that's what you do. But after the vows were exchanged, something shifted, not slowly, not subtly. It was like a switch was flipped. Sex dwindled from weekly to bi-weekly, and then to nothing. The last time they were intimate, her birthday. And that birthday was almost a full year ago. And the saddest part? She tried. She asked him to see a doctor, asked if there was something she was doing wrong. She opened every door possible to understanding. But he wasn't on medication, wasn't going through any health crisis. He just wasn't interested. So finally, the writer, refusing to live in a cold, intimacy-starved shell of a marriage, pulled the plug. She filed for divorce. But here's where the plot thickens. Out of nowhere, his previous ex-wife reaches out, wants to talk, says she didn't want to interfere before, unsure if the writer was maybe asexual herself. But now that things are ending, she admits he did the exact same thing to her, and not just her, his girlfriend before that too. It wasn't a fluke, it wasn't circumstantial, it was a pattern. Now thankfully, the divorce process is smooth, no entangled finances, no children, no drawn-out custody or property battles, just a clean break. But life, of course, doesn't let it stay that simple. Enter Amy. She's 24, young, confident, maybe even a little cocky. She shows up to every divorce hearing lately like she's sitting courtside at a drama she already won. Her vibe? Smug. Her attitude? Victorious. She leans in, tells the writer that her ex has sex with her all the time. That clearly the problem was the writer, that she just wasn't meeting his needs. Now pause right there, because that was the wrong move. You can only poke a wounded person so many times before they snap. And in that moment, the writer, already hurt, already betrayed, already navigating emotional wreckage, decided Amy needed a reality check. She told her flat out, "He did the exact same thing to me and to the ex-wife before me and the girlfriend before that. You're not special. Give it a few months and he'll go cold on you too." No sugarcoating, no soft delivery. Just the truth. She even warned her, this isn't about you. He's trying to lock her in, get her emotionally invested before pulling the same disappearing act. This wasn't some jealous ex trying to stir the pot. This was someone waving a red flag she wishes someone else had waved for her. Amy? She looked stunned, said she doubted it, and left. But the story doesn't end there. A few hours later, the ex-husband called, furious. Turns out Amy's now rethinking things. She's been reaching out to his other exes, trying to confirm the writer's story. And guess what? She's finding out the truth. Now he's panicking. His new relationship is crumbling, and who does he blame? Not himself. Not the years of repeated behavior, not the emotional neglect. No, he blames the writer. She admits she feels a bit bad for blowing up his relationship. Not a lot, but a flicker of guilt, because as much as she doesn't regret telling the truth, she also knows how harsh she was. But let's be honest, Amy kind of invited the storm with her smug little comments. The writer even told him calmly, "Find someone who's also asexual. Stop stringing people along who expect intimacy. It's not fair to them or to you." So now she's left wondering, was she the asshole for telling Amy the truth? Let's talk about that. No, she wasn't. She was honest. Blunt? Absolutely. Maybe even a little savage, but the core of it, truth. And more importantly, it was a truth she wished someone had told her. So why should she stay silent just to protect a man who has repeatedly misled women about who he really is? Amy needed to know. Maybe she won't believe it right away. Maybe she'll learn the hard way. But now, at least she has the choice to pay attention. And as for the ex, if the truth tanked his relationship, maybe it wasn't that solid to begin with. Title: Am I the asshole for choosing to get married where I live and not where my mom lives, even if it means my stepsister can't attend? This story isn't just about a wedding. It's about years of emotional baggage, unresolved resentment, and the price of choices parents make, especially when one child gets caught in the wake of another's needs. The writer, a 29-year-old man, is trying to plan his wedding, a moment that should be joyful, celebrated, and centered around him and his partner. But instead it's being overshadowed by a chapter of his past that still leaves a bitter taste. Let's rewind. The writer's father passed when he was just 6. That's young, an age where you still believe the world makes sense, where your parents are your whole universe, and then suddenly, half of that universe is gone. For a while, it was just him and his mom until Dan entered the picture. Seemed like an okay guy. They married when the writer was 11, not much time to process it, but he accepted it. Then came the chaos. Dan's ex wanted to move states with their daughter, now the writer's stepsister. Instead of standing his ground in court, instead of even trying to fight for stability, Dan and the writer's mom decided they'd follow every single time. 8 moves in 5 years. The writer didn't just change homes. He lost roots, friends, extended family, a sense of permanence. All of it sacrificed for a stepsister he barely knew and didn't ask to chase after. And the cruel irony? Even Dan admitted that his ex didn't want them nearby, so she'd just keep moving to push them away. Yet they followed. Every time. So yeah, the resentment? It makes sense. Because while his mom was trying to keep the family together, she was dragging one part of it through the mud for the sake of another. Eventually, tragedy struck. The stepsister and her mom were in a terrible accident. Her mom survived. The stepsister didn't walk away the same. She was left with life-altering injuries and now requires constant care. Dan and the writer's mom settled down and in their last location, took full custody and devoted their lives to her care. Meanwhile, the writer, finally old enough to choose for himself, moved out at 18. Not out of rebellion, out of survival. And that choice? It fractured things. Dan was furious, expected the writer to one day take over caregiving responsibilities. But the writer had already spent his formative years sacrificing his own stability for this girl. He was done. His mom was heartbroken, couldn't understand why her son wouldn't just let the past go, but she never really asked what that past felt like for him. Fast forward to today. The writer is engaged, he's getting married, he sends out save the dates. The wedding, it's local, to where he lives, naturally, because this is his life now, his roots, his peace. But suddenly, here comes mom. Why aren't you getting married near us? Not congrats, not we're so proud of you. No, the first concern is how this affects his stepsister. Apparently, she can't make the trip. And now the writer's being told he should upend his plans, move the whole wedding, just so she can attend. Dan calls it selfish. Let's pause there. Because if we're talking selfishness, who moved a child 8 times in 5 years to follow someone else's kid around? Who decided their family would be the one centered every single time? The writer tells them both, if you can't come, I understand, but my life is here. My wedding will be here. And you can almost hear the years of suppressed hurt coming out in that one simple boundary. Dan isn't having it, says it's fucked up, that it's just one day, one small trip, one gesture to include someone who can't travel. But the writer knows better. This isn't about one day. This is about a lifetime of being second place. And this time, he's not budging. His mom presses harder. Are you really okay with your only sibling not being there? And that's when the writer drops the realest line in this entire post. You don't want to hear my honest answer to that. That's the truth no one in that household has been willing to face. He doesn't see her as a sibling. Not truly. Not in the way they wanted him to. She was a stranger who stole his stability. Through no fault of her own, sure, but she became the center of his life against his will. His mom now says it feels like punishment, that he's punishing them for following Dan's daughter all those years, and maybe she's not wrong. But let's be clear, the writer is not He's finally putting himself first for once. So, is he the asshole for doing that? Absolutely not. He's a man trying to build a new chapter. One that's his, one that's grounded, one that doesn't ask him to uproot or sacrifice himself, again, for someone else's needs. This isn't about spite. This is about survival, healing, and choosing peace, even when others don't understand it. This one hits deep, because it's not just a wedding location, it's years of emotional weight crashing down into one decision. The writer isn't asking too much. He's asking for just one day to be about him, after all the years that weren't. Some people might see this as cold, but others, especially those who know what it's like to be overlooked for the needs of the family, will feel every word. What do you think? Was the writer right to stand his ground? Or was there another way? Let's talk about it. Title: Am I the asshole for saying okay when my mom's husband said he won't be coming to my wedding? Some people expect to be missed just because they announce their absence. But what happens when someone you're supposed to care about says they won't be there for one of the biggest days of your life, and your first reaction is just, okay? That's where the writer found herself. She's 29 now. And this wedding, it was supposed to happen last year. The flowers were picked, the venue was set, the date was marked, but then everything came to a halt. Her father passed away days before the wedding. The kind of loss that rips through everything, not just the event, but the meaning behind it. The person she was going to walk down the aisle with, dance with, smile at in the crowd. And so, with a broken heart and trembling hands, she postponed the wedding. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't face that aisle without him. Thankfully, the venue understood. Compassion at a time when she needed it most. Fast forward to now. The new wedding date is set for this summer, and here comes her mother's husband, not her stepdad, not her father figure, just her mom's husband. He announces rather casually that he won't be attending. And the writer? She just says, okay, that's it. No drama, no pleading, no but why. And somehow that was the thing that sent him into a rage. Is okay really all you can say? He wanted a reaction. He expected shock. He wanted her to beg, but why would she? She'd already known this was coming. He'd practically promised this months ago. Let's rewind again, because context here is everything. The writer met this man when she was 15, not 5, not a toddler needing guidance, a teenager with her own identity and a very involved dad. She didn't bond with him, didn't call him stepdad, didn't feel a connection. And her older siblings? Same thing. They were adults when he came into their lives. They weren't looking for another parent, and he didn't try to be one. But here's where it gets tense. 2 weeks before the original wedding date, this man, her mom's husband, ends up in the hospital. It was serious, life-threatening even. But then just days later, the writer's father died. And that was the reason she postponed the wedding. Her actual father died. But guess who took it personally? He did. He didn't see a grieving daughter. He saw a bride who chose to postpone for her dad and not for him, as if those two things were even remotely comparable. Then, to make it worse, he complained. He whined about not being chosen to walk her down the aisle, not getting a dance, not being honored. He made it about him weeks after her father passed away. That's the kind of energy this man brought into her life during one of her darkest moments. So now when he tells her he won't be attending, Of course, she says okay, because what else is there to say? She doesn't need him there. She doesn't crave his approval. His absence won't leave a gap at the table, and maybe, just maybe, it'll make the day a little less tense. But apparently, her calm was offensive. He wanted theatrics. He wanted importance. Her mom, she backed him up, said okay was dismissive, cold, rude. But was it? Or was it just honest? Commentary. This situation is less about weddings and more about expectations. The writer didn't push him away. He was never really in. And now that she's indifferent to his absence, suddenly that's the problem? There's something quietly powerful about someone who no longer needs to fight for peace, who simply lets go of things that no longer serve them and doesn't make a scene. The writer didn't argue. She didn't lash out. She just said, okay. And sometimes that one word says it all. So is the writer the asshole for not begging him to come? Or is this a case of a man who expected emotional currency he never earned? Let's hear your thoughts. Title: Am I the asshole if my boyfriend made a meal and I said it was fine? Sometimes it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. Or worse, it's what you don't say. The writer found herself in what should have been a simple everyday moment: dinner at home. Nothing extravagant, no guests to impress, just her and her boyfriend sharing a meal. He'd cooked chicken breast with plain white rice, a bit of salad laced with garlic, some jarred pickles, a side of beetroot. A quiet evening, a humble plate, and one question: how is it? Now, for some, that question opens the door to flowery praise. For others, it's just small talk over a weekday dinner. And the writer? She gave an honest answer. It's fine, everything tastes as it should. That was it. Nothing harsh, nothing cruel, just factual. But for her boyfriend, that answer landed like a slap. He'd expected something else, a smile, a compliment, something warm at the very least. But instead, he got fine, and suddenly the room got colder. He pointed out that he added soy sauce to the chicken, that there was extra garlic in the lettuce, that he'd put in effort. But even he admitted neither of them could taste it. So where was this reaction really coming from? Here's where it starts to unfold. In his family, dinner isn't just a meal, it's a ritual of praise. Every bite is celebrated, every dish is met with a chorus of so delicious and wow, amazing. It's like a performance at every table. But the writer? She comes from a different world. In her house, food is food. Unless something is truly out of the ordinary, no one's breaking into song about the chicken. You just eat, talk about your day. Maybe compliment something if it stands out, but no over-the-top declarations for basic rice and lettuce. So when she didn't perform, her boyfriend took as rejection. He didn't just frown, he didn't brush it off. He picked up his plate and walked out, took his meal to the office, alone, like she just insulted his entire lineage. And now the writer is sitting there thinking, what just happened? Is she really the villain here for not gushing over plain food? Or is this about something deeper? Because this isn't just about garlic or soy sauce. This is about expectations, traditions, emotional validation, and compatibility. Is she supposed to fake enthusiasm at every meal to keep the peace? Is saying fine really that terrible when it wasn't meant with malice? And more importantly, should love require that kind of performance? This is one of those deceptively small arguments that tells you something much bigger about a relationship. The writer isn't wrong for being honest, but her boyfriend isn't just reacting to her words. He's reacting to feeling unseen. It's not about food. It's about emotional language. He sees praise as love. She sees silence as normal. So now we're asking, does the writer need to change? Or does he need to accept that not everyone is going to throw a parade over chicken rice? In the end, it's not about whether the food was good. It's about how we handle disappointment and whether we can love each other across that cultural divide. What do you think? Is the writer the asshole for calling it fine? Or does her boyfriend need to simmer down over a very average dinner? Let's talk. Title: Am I the asshole for not eating food made for me on a date because I'm picky? Sometimes, all it takes is one bite or the refusal of it to reveal who someone really is. The writer is a 24-year-old single mom. She's not just navigating the dating world. She's doing it with the weight of past trauma, the responsibility of an 8-year-old daughter, and a complicated relationship with food that she's had to quietly manage for years. Her daughter has ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. It's not being picky. It's not a phase. It's a real condition, tightly woven into her autism spectrum diagnosis. For her, food isn't just about taste, it's about safety. And ever since that diagnosis, the writer started to recognize the same patterns in herself. No formal diagnosis yet, but the signs are there. Still, she makes it work. She's self-sufficient. She survives. And then, after years of being on her own, she meets someone. Their first date? A dream. Dinner out, thoughtful conversation, even discussions about the future. The kind of talk that feels serious, hopeful. He seemed to get it, understood her, respected her daughter, played the part of the family man. But then came the second date, the one that didn't happen at a restaurant, but his place. More personal, more intimate, just a movie and dinner, cooked by him. Now, here's where the shift begins. The plate looked good. She could admit that, but one look and her heart dropped. Mayo. Not just a dislike, not just a texture issue, but a known allergy. And not a secret one either. She had told him. Clearly. On the first date, he had nodded, acknowledged it, seemed fine, and now it was in the food. She apologized, sincerely, over and over. She didn't want to hurt his feelings, didn't want to insult his effort, but she also didn't want to end up in the hospital, or worse. And then came his comment. Once we get you past this Mayo thing, daughter's name can get over her crap too. That's when everything stopped. Because that wasn't just a bad joke. That wasn't a harmless slip. That was a deep, casual disrespect wrapped in sarcasm. He crossed a line. And the writer, she snapped back, rightfully so. I'm not eating your gross food, and don't talk about my daughter like that. Was it harsh? Maybe. But in that moment, she was protecting herself and her child. And he immediately apologized, said it was just a stupid joke. They made peace, ordered some macas, she left early. It could have ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, she texted him, a gentle olive branch. Had fun, sorry about earlier. And that's when his mask fully slipped. It's fine, just didn't have to be such a dick about it. Excuse me? The writer was floored. They had ended things on a good note, or so she thought. But now he was doubling down, completely ignoring the allergy, brushing off her very real boundaries, and attacking her parenting of all things. You really need to get over this, Cass. It's childish. It's not the way you raise a kid. And suddenly all the red flags were waving in unison. Because this wasn't just about a plate of food anymore. This was about control, about respect, about whether this man saw her as an equal or just someone to fix. Let's be clear, the writer didn't refuse his food out of snobbery. She avoided it because it could literally harm her. And the fact that he knew that and still tried to guilt her, that's not romantic. That's reckless. And what's worse is how quickly he turned from supportive to condescending the moment things didn't go his way. He couldn't handle being told no, not even when her health was at stake. The writer showed more grace than many would have. She apologized for calling the food gross, even though, let's be honest, if it contains a known allergen, gross might be the safest word to use. So, is the writer the asshole for not eating the food? Or is this yet another case of a man misunderstanding boundaries for rejection? I'll let you decide, but I know which side I'm leaning toward. Because when someone shows you they're willing to ignore your needs, laugh off your kids' challenges, and twist a sincere apology into an ego bruise, that's not someone who's ready to be part of your family. That's someone you leave before date 3. Title: Am I the asshole for telling my mom I'll never forgive her if she fucks up my adoption? Let's talk about what home really means. Because for the writer, only 14 years old, it's not just a place with walls and a roof. It's pizza Fridays, movie nights in pajamas, and Saturday nail appointments with her aunt. It's peace, it's safety, it's love that shows up every single day, not just when things get legally complicated. The writer's been living with her aunt, her mom's own sister, since she was 8 years old. That wasn't a casual arrangement. CPS stepped in after an incident involving her mother's ex-boyfriend, and from there her mom admitted she couldn't handle 4 kids alone, so the writer stayed with her aunt, And then, just like that, silence. No calls, no visits, no birthday cards, not even a few dollars sent in support. 4 years. 4 years of nothing. And in that silence, something else grew. A life, one with rhythm, rituals, and real affection. On Tuesdays, they eat out. Ryder almost always gets to pick the place. On Fridays, they curl up in PJs with pizza, ice cream, and movies. When middle school started, the aunt added nail salon trips to their routine. And get this, they even visit a condo in the mountains during breaks. And the trust? The kind of trust that lets a teenager hang out by the beach with friends as long as the location's shared and she's back before dark? That's no small thing. That's years of building a bond, brick by brick. Now, her aunt's been trying to adopt her for years. Finally, they're at the point where the courts might terminate her mom's parental rights. Because again, no contact for 4 years. It's a long road, but there's hope. And right when things start to look like they'll finally become official, the mom reappears, like clockwork. Suddenly the emails start coming in, sent to an old address. I miss you. I want to see you. Pictures of her new life, her new family. A bed, shopping bags, presents, a whole bedroom, supposedly waiting. And it feels like performance. See, Ryder was told not to respond, let the adults handle it, and for a while, she did. But then came that email, the one with the photo of her bed, and all the things waiting for her. The implication was clear. Come home, everything's ready. Forget the last 4 years. And that was the breaking point. The writer finally wrote back. She said what many wouldn't have the courage to say at that age. She told her mom the truth, that she doesn't want to live with her, that she doesn't even know the people in the pictures, and that if her mom messes up this adoption, this chance at real stability, then she'll never forgive her. She'll cut ties for good once she turns 18. It was raw, honest, and yes, maybe a little harsh. Her mom, she cried, called the aunt in tears. And the aunt, she got mad at the writer, not for what she said, but for going against the plan, for reaching out when she was told not to. Now the writer's left wondering, am I the asshole for being rude, for not waiting, for finally snapping after years of silence? Commentary. Let's just sit with this for a second. This isn't about a kid throwing a tantrum. This is a young girl begging not to be pulled away from the only real home she's ever known. She didn't reach out to stir drama, she reached out because she was scared. Scared her mother might ruin everything at the last second with a few emails, some money, and a bed full of Target bags. And if we're being real, this wasn't the time for her mother to suddenly start parenting. Not now. Not when it risks unraveling years of security. Not when it's driven more by fear of losing parental rights than genuine understanding. Could the writer have waited? Maybe. Could the words have been softer? Possibly. But here's what matters. She was protecting herself. At 14, she already knows what's at stake. And that's heartbreaking. No child should have to fight so hard just to stay in the one place they feel safe. So, is the writer the asshole? No, not even close. She's a teenager who drew a line made of hurt. Yes, but also strength. And when someone's been absent that long, they don't just get to waltz back in and play mom when the courts come calling. This wasn't cruelty. This was clarity. And honestly, that takes guts. Title, Am I the Asshole for saying my boyfriend's friend can't visit us now that I'm pregnant? There comes a point in every story where tolerance starts to wear thin. And in this case, the writer has been carrying more than just the weight of pregnancy. She's been carrying the weight of a house guest who doesn't live there, but treats the home like his own personal base camp. See, the writer is pregnant, tired, hormonal, and in desperate need of peace. But her boyfriend's friend, he's doing the whole van life thing. And while that might sound like an Instagram dream, the reality is a bit grittier. He's been rolling up to their house a couple times a week, camping out for 10 to 12 hours at a time. That's not a quick pop-in. That's an entire shift. He uses their shower, their kitchen, their washer, their Wi-Fi, and leaves behind a trail of chaos. Let's talk about that shower. Every time this guy gets clean, the writer finds herself face to face with a thick coat of body hair all over the tub. Think about that. You're pregnant, exhausted, you just want to take a hot shower, and instead, You're on your knees scrubbing someone else's hair out of the drain. That's not just inconsiderate, that's dehumanizing. The laundry, it's a whole different beast. After he runs a load, the laundry room looks like someone dragged in a forest floor. Sticks, leaves, sand, and he just walks away like it's normal. The kitchen? Oh, you better believe he hogs that too, then leaves behind a stack of dirty dishes like he's got a housekeeper on staff. Spoiler, it's the writer. And while her boyfriend technically should be the one picking up the slack, he's working more lately, so guess who gets stuck doing everything? This friend isn't just a visitor, he's a recurring burden. Now, for months, the writer's been putting up with it, out of patience, out of kindness, out of understanding, because she knows the guy's down on his luck. But now that she's pregnant, everything changes. She needs privacy, she needs rest, and honestly, she needs to exist in her own home without a bra on. Is that too much to ask? So finally, she brings it up to her boyfriend, calmly, firmly asking him to set a boundary. No visitors for a few months, just until the baby's here, until she's stable again. It's not a forever ban, it's a request for space and sanity. And the boyfriend's reaction? He acts like she kicked a puppy. He tells her it's a weird thing to ask. Awkward. Cruel. Like she's heartless for needing her home to herself during pregnancy. Let that sink in. A grown man is making his pregnant partner feel guilty for needing a break from someone who's been mooching off them for months, someone who doesn't even clean up after himself. And yeah, he eventually agrees to say something to his friend, but not without making it painfully clear that he thinks the writer is a monster for bringing it up in the first place. Commentary. Let's cut through the noise. This isn't just about a van-dwelling friend. It's about a partner who isn't standing up for the woman carrying his child. It's about a man who's prioritizing his buddy's comfort over his own household's peace. The writer isn't being harsh, she's being reasonable. If she were turning this guy away in the dead of winter with nowhere to go, that's one thing. But this is about boundaries, and the fact that she even has to justify this, wild. Pregnancy is not a vacation. It's physical, emotional, and exhausting. If the writer wants a few months of quiet without surprise house guests, body hair in the tub, and trails of dirt in the laundry room, that is more than fair. Frankly, it should have been her boyfriend's idea to begin with. So, is the writer the asshole for asking for this boundary? Absolutely not. She's not kicking someone when they're down. She's protecting herself during one of the most vulnerable times in her life. And if her partner can't see that, then the issue isn't the van friend, it's the man standing beside her. This is about more than a house guest, it's about respect. And right now, the writer deserves a whole lot more of it. Title: Am I the asshole for leaving my Mills wedding with my children after my partner's brother arrived? Weddings are supposed to be joyful, a celebration of love, unity, the beginning of a new chapter. But for the writer and her partner, this wedding was never going to be just about champagne toasts and cutting cake. It was about boundaries. And one boundary in particular, very clear, very firm, had already been drawn. The writer's partner, a 27-year-old man, had one condition for attending his mother's wedding, that his older brother, Stan, not be there. And it wasn't just him. Another brother, Jack, who's a father of 3, echoed that exact same request. You see, Stan has a past, a dark one. He was convicted of sexually assaulting his half-brothers, including the writer's partner. That's not some minor family tiff. That's not drama. That's trauma. And so, understandably, the condition was simple. If Stan is there, we're not. The writer's Mael gave them her word. She promised, swore up and down that Stan would not be attending. Only his ex would come, with Stan's child. That seemed reasonable. It gave everyone the chance to show up in good faith, to honor a day that wasn't supposed to come with this kind of pain. But then, the twist. The ceremony ends. People are mingling, laughing, relaxing. The writer is keeping an eye on her children, while her partner reconnects with family he hasn't seen in years. And that's when Stan shows up. No warning, no heads up, no apology. Just Stan approaching the writer like they're old friends. Like everything is normal, like he didn't destroy something sacred years ago. And here's the thing, the writer has never even met him, but somehow he already knows who she is. That alone is unsettling. And rather than entertain this man who deeply hurt her partner, she picks up her children, walks away, and goes straight to her partner and Jack. The reaction? Immediate. Fury. Shock. Betrayal. They don't argue. They don't make a scene. They just leave. Before the reception. Before the first dance. Before the toasts and the cake and the photographs that were supposed to capture memories, not reopen wounds. And then came the phone call. Mael, confused and crying, asks where they went. The writer explains everything clearly. Stan was there. The boundary was broken. They couldn't stay. Mael tries to justify it. She just wanted all her kids there. It was over 20 years ago. He's changed. But the writer doesn't budge. She reminds her, you knew what happened. You knew the condition. You made your choice. And now? Now her phone is blowing up. People are blaming her for ruining the wedding. Her Mael won't stop crying. She's painted as the villain, the one who turned a happy occasion into something cold and fractured. Commentary. Let's pause right there, because what we're witnessing isn't just a wedding gone wrong. It's what happens when silence is prioritized over safety, when appearances are chosen over accountability. The writer didn't ruin the wedding. Stan's presence did. And the decision to allow him in to give him a seat at the table when the people he hurt were promised otherwise, that's what shattered the peace. This wasn't about holding a grudge. It wasn't about drama. This was about a man who endured abuse from his own brother. That kind of pain doesn't expire after 20 years. It doesn't magically dissolve because someone puts on a tux and says, I've changed. Forgiveness doesn't mean exposure. And you know what? Choosing to protect your partner, your children, and your peace, that doesn't make you cruel. It makes you courageous. The writer had every right to leave. She didn't scream. She didn't shame anyone. She just removed her family from a situation that was emotionally unsafe. That takes strength and clarity. So, is the writer the asshole for walking away from a broken promise with her children in her arms? Absolutely not. She didn't ruin the wedding. She upheld a boundary that should have never been tested to begin with. And if that makes people uncomfortable, maybe they should sit with that discomfort, because it's nothing compared to what her partner has carried for decades. This story isn't about a ruined wedding. It's about a family that chose silence over healing, and a woman who said, not on my watch. Title: Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit my sister's miracle baby after what she did to my dog? Family. It's supposed to mean loyalty, love, respect, but sometimes family throws all of that out the window the moment it becomes inconvenient for them. The writer, a 28-year-old woman, has always tried to be supportive. Her older sister, 32, recently had a baby after years of heartbreaking infertility, a baby she called her miracle. A child the entire family rallied behind, and understandably so. After all the struggle, the longing, the grief, this baby brought joy. But in the midst of that joy, something else quietly shifted. You see, the writer has a dog, Benny, a 5-year-old golden retriever, the kind of dog people describe as having a heart made of gold, loyal, gentle, calm. The whole family adored him, even her sister, once upon a time. But once the baby arrived, that love dried up faster than anyone expected. The first red flag? A visit. The writer brought Benny along as she had done countless times before. He didn't bark, he didn't move, just stayed on his mat, silent and calm. But when the baby started crying, the sister declared, I think he's making the baby nervous, and asked her to put him outside in the middle of winter. Now, come on, that's not concern. That's convenience masked as parenting. That's someone looking for a reason to exile something that no longer fits into their new world. The writer refused, and she left. Strike one. Next visit? Her sister was blunt. I don't want Benny around my son. He's a dog. Just like that. No explanation, no discussion, just a dismissal. And the writer, she didn't argue. She stopped bringing Benny over. But let's be honest, something changed in the air that day. A line had been drawn. Then came the weekend that crossed every boundary. The writer had to go out of town. Her sister's house was being fumigated. She begged to stay at the writer's place, and despite the tension, the writer agreed. She thought maybe this could smooth things over. Maybe there's still trust here. She was wrong. Sunday night. The writer walks in the door. Benny's not wagging his tail. He's not greeting her. He's hiding, trembling, curled up under the bed like the world was ending. Turns out her sister had locked Benny in the laundry room for 2 full days. No food, no water, no light. Just locked him away because he was staring too much, and it made the baby fussy. That's not discomfort, that's cruelty. And the writer, she snapped as she should have. She told her sister she was never welcome in her home again, and that she was lucky animal services weren't called. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just neglect, it was abuse. But here's where it really starts to twist. A month passes, no apology, no remorse, just silence. And then out of nowhere, the sister asks the writer to babysit twice a week for free. Let that sink in. She mistreats the writer's dog, violates her home, shows zero accountability, and then expects her to provide childcare like none of it happened. When the writer refuses, the sister flips the script. She calls her bitter, selfish, says she doesn't understand unconditional love. Even mom gets involved, calling the writer cruel for not helping. But here's the thing, they're all missing the point. This isn't just about a dog, it's about respect. It's about boundaries. It's about how someone can show you, loud and clear, that they don't care about what you love and then expect you to pretend like nothing happened when it suits them. Let's be real. Benny isn't just a pet. He's family. He's love in fur form. And when someone locks that kind of love away without blinking, that says everything about how they see you. This isn't about holding a grudge. This is about knowing your worth and refusing to be guilt-tripped into giving energy to someone who has proven they don't respect yours. The writer has every right to say no. And honestly, it's not even a hard decision. If someone can mistreat your dog, they can mistreat your trust. And once that's broken, you don't hand it back just because someone cries family. Unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional access. So, is the writer the asshole for refusing to babysit her sister's miracle baby after what she did to her dog? Absolutely not. She's someone who set a boundary and stuck to it. And that's not bitterness, it's self-respect. If anything, more people should learn to love like the writer, fiercely but with a spine. Title: Am I the asshole for untagging myself from my guy best friend's IG post after he cropped my fiancé out of our engagement photo? Woo. This one is personal, layered, and just a little messy. So let's set the scene. The writer, a 25-year-old woman, is in that glowing, unreal headspace that only happens after the question is popped. She and her fiancé, 27, are in Napa with a few close friends, soaking in that dreamy vineyard sunset. It's private, emotional, a moment built for memory. And in that perfect moment, he proposes. He puts a ring on it. She's crying, he's smiling. The love, palpable. Her best friend, Jay, 26, is there too. He snaps a photo, and it's gold. Not just any photo, the photo. The kind you frame, show your kids one day, post once, and never touch again because no other pic compares. It's that good. But here's where it starts to shift. Jay takes that photo and posts it on Instagram, but not with a congrats to these two or a sweet shout out to the happy couple. No. He crops out the fiancé. Yup, gone, out, clean slice. Like the man who literally just asked her to spend forever with him was never there. And not only that, no mention of the engagement, no celebration, no tag for the man who's half the reason that moment even existed. The caption? She's glowing. Like it's a solo glam shot, like it's some soft focus modeling reel, and not her engagement photo. The writer understandably is thrown. She messages Jay directly, calm, clear, just like, hey, kind of weird, right? That was my engagement photo. And Jay's response, you looked so good in it, I just had to post. What? Let's be honest here. That wasn't support. That wasn't celebration. That was vanity. Maybe ego. Maybe something else, something that's been sitting under the surface for longer than the writer realized. So what does she do? She untagged herself. No drama, no clap back, just quietly, no thank you. And that should have been the end of it. But then, like clockwork, the vague stories start. Jay's on his story now talking about people switching up, throwing around phrases like too real for the fake. What is this? A Drake album rollout? It's giving insecure energy. Now the writer's got people in her circle telling her she's the problem, that she should have been flattered, that he was just being supportive. Let's pause there. Supportive? Supportive is saying, I'm so happy for you two. Supportive is posting the full pic with the fiancé and a genuine message about your friends taking the next step. Supportive is knowing this isn't about you. What Jay did wasn't support. It was spotlight theft. It was centering himself in a moment that wasn't his. And when the writer set a boundary, did he apologize? Reflect? Nope. He doubled down, publicly. Here's the thing. This isn't about social media drama. This is about respect, about how people show you, sometimes in the smallest ways, who they really are when the light isn't shining on them. The writer just got engaged. That's sacred. That's not the moment for your best friend to suddenly get artistic and crop out your future husband like he was photobombing. Let's call it what it is, weird. And maybe a little possessive, and definitely not something you dismiss with, you looked hot. The writer didn't overreact. She protected a memory, a moment. And in doing so, she revealed how off Jay's priorities really were. So, is the writer the asshole for untagging herself from a post that erased her fiancé and her engagement? Not even close. She didn't switch up. She woke up to the fact that sometimes the people closest to us don't know how to celebrate us unless they're standing in the spotlight too. Title, Am I the asshole for breaking up and treating him like a stranger after he falsely promised marriage as a condition for living together? The writer, 32 years old, was in a committed relationship with Alan, 34, 5 years deep. And from year 2, they weren't just dating, they were planning. Laying it all out on the table. Deal breakers, timelines, expectations, the big stuff. One of those expectations, that if they were going to live together, engagement would come first. Alan promised. He'd propose before the end of the year. So the writer trusted him, even when her family warned her not to, even when they said moving in without a ring was risky. She believed in him, in them. But that promise, it turned into dust. 2 years passed. No proposal, no ring, just silence. And yet the writer wasn't idle. She stepped up. When Alan lost his job, she worked extra hours, took on the burden of the bills. She was his emotional anchor when he struggled at his new job. She even supported him through the chaotic mess that was his family, treading lightly, even when they dragged drama straight into their lives. All she wanted in return was honesty. A ring wasn't the point. It was the commitment behind it, the promise, the truth. But every time she asked about it, he'd deflect. Let's talk later. I'm tired. Wedding talk is exhausting. He became vague, distant, acting as if she was asking for a diamond-studded throne instead of clarity. She tried to stay patient. She reminded him she loved him, that all she wanted was to build a life with him. But instead of reciprocating, he looked annoyed, agitated, as if her very presence was inconvenient. And then came the final blow. She finds out, after covering more than 60% of their expenses, that Alan had dropped $1,500 on his younger brother's birthday party, while she had to buy her own frozen cake for her birthday. Alone. Quietly. Trying not to make him feel guilty about doing nothing. That was it. That was the moment she realized she wasn't just being forgotten. She was being used. She had become the silent support system, the dependable one, the one who gives without asking much. And he had taken and taken until there was nothing left to give. So she decided to leave. With their lease ending May 30th, the writer told him it was over, that she'd be moving out. And when he asked if she was really sure, she said yes, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Because staying would have meant sacrificing her dignity again and again for a man who never intended to keep his word. She began sleeping on the sofa. Alan tried to talk, but she was done. She'd heard all the words before. She knew how this script ended. He asked for a lease extension for the sake of his custody agreement, and she still said no. It was never about cruelty. It was about finally choosing herself. Even as she packed her things, he clung. He asked if she could imagine being with someone else. She didn't answer. Because what do you say to a man who's only sorry now that he sees you walking out the door? She blocked his family, cut every thread connecting her to the world that drained her for 2 years, and then, heartbreakingly, he tried one last time. He came into the living room and laid down on the futon beside her. Not to fight, not to scream, but because he said he didn't want to feel her absence until it was real. She asked him to leave, kindly but firmly. And when he said she was treating him like shit, she stood her ground. Because this isn't about revenge, it's about survival. So, is the writer the asshole for breaking up and treating Alan like a stranger after he broke his promise? Absolutely not. She didn't break his heart. He broke her spirit, piece by piece, promise by promise. Until she had to make the impossible choice between staying for someone who never chose her or walking away to reclaim her peace. Some people only love you when you're leaving, and that's not love, it's regret. Title: Am I the asshole for wanting to formally complain after my daughter's dance teacher invited her to a sleepover at her house? The writer is a parent, protective, thoughtful, not paranoid, but present. Her daughter is 7. Still little, still needing that security blanket of home. She's been taking ballet since she was 4, but only joined this particular school about a year ago. A fresh start, small class, just 7 girls, all in that delicate age of learning to trust adults while still clutching teddy bears at night. 2 dance lessons a week. Enough to bond, but not exactly soul-deep familiarity. Just routine. That's why what happened next shook the writer so deeply. Earlier this week, her daughter came home with a surprise. Not from the school, not from a fellow classmate's birthday party. No, this came from the dance teacher. A slumber party invitation. At her house. Now let's just pause right there. Not at the studio, not as part of an official end-of-season celebration, but at a grown woman's private residence, with a promise of McDonald's, movies, and games. Only the 7 girls were invited, all under 8. All through word of mouth to the children. Not a single parent was directly informed, not even a heads up. No permission slips, no contact from the school. Just whispered excitement passed through tiny voices. And here's the thing. Some kids were thrilled. A McDonald's-fueled sleepover with friends? What's not to love? But the writer's daughter, she was anxious. She's not ready to be away from home overnight. And honestly, the writer wasn't ready to send her. Not like this. Because this isn't normal, right? The writer did what any responsible parent would. She reached out, talked to the other moms. Turns out they got the same surprise from their daughters too. A few seemed fine with it, brushing it off like it was quirky or generous. But the writer? She couldn't shake that gnawing feeling in her gut. Why hadn't this been handled professionally? Why hadn't the teacher reached out to the parents directly or looped in the school? The writer barely knows this woman. Beyond quick chats about class times and ballet shoes, has no idea who this teacher is, her background, her home environment, her boundaries. And yet, this teacher somehow thought it was acceptable to invite 7 young children into her private space without discussing it with their guardians. And that's what makes this uncomfortable. Because intention aside, even if this teacher is the kindest soul on earth, this was not appropriate. And the fact that it was done quietly, without transparency, makes it worse. It sets a dangerous precedent. One that says it's okay for adults to privately invite your kids somewhere without your consent. That's not okay. Not now. Not ever. So now the writer is stuck in that uncomfortable space parents know too well. Is this an overreaction? Or is it a necessary step to protect her child and raise a red flag others may be ignoring? She's leaning toward filing a formal complaint with the school. Not because she's trying to start drama, but because it's the responsible thing to do. She doesn't want to risk being silent and regretting it later. Still, the hesitation lingers. 2 of the other moms seem fine with it. That whisper of doubt creeps in. Am I being too much? So, is the writer the asshole for wanting to report this sleepover invitation? Absolutely not. She's not reacting out of fear. She's reacting out of instinct. The kind that every parent develops when the stakes are high and the rules get blurry. There's a line between being generous with your time as a teacher and crossing personal boundaries. And this was a step too far. The writer doesn't owe anyone an apology for putting her child's safety first. If anything, the real question should be, why didn't more people raise their eyebrows? Because when it comes to children, you don't get to skip protocol. Not for McNuggets, not for movies, not even for good intentions. And if speaking up protects one child or even just makes the dance school rethink its boundaries, then it's worth every awkward conversation that follows.